The topic today is clinical enzymology. This will be the last portion. The enzyme portion was pretty huge. This will be the last portion of enzymes. Enzymes as a whole is very, very important for your exam point of view. Any exam you write, you can not afford to go to the exam without studying enzymes. Now, clinical enzymology class, we will be discussing about what is plasma and serum, basic concept of them, what are functional and non-functional enzymes, isoenzymes, and enzymes that are used in diagnostic areas for diagnosis purpose, and the enzymes that are used in the form of medicine. So we'll start with what is clinical enzymology. Enzymology, as you know, is the study of enzymes, right? So when we say clinical enzymology, it means that the study of enzyme, their activity, their property, and how they work in an environment in a sample. We study them for the purpose of diagnosis, for the purpose of understanding the disease. Okay, so under that, now this is serum and plasma. Like I said, in a biological sample, you will be taking samples from the patient and test them for the disease, right? So when you take a sample, usually it will be either whole blood or a serum or a plasma. So let's understand what is a serum or a plasma. There is a difference between serum and the plasma. They both are liquid part of the blood, right? But serum is also the liquid part, but what happens with serum is that over here you can see this is the clot. Now every sample that is there, you understand the blood has like the fluid part and then the solid part. Solid part means WBC, RBC, platelets, etc. They are the solid part of it, the cells, and then there is a liquid part of that. The liquid part is the plasma with the clotting factor. Now when we take this sample, whole blood sample, and let it clot, okay, we let the blood clot, and then what we will get is this, a fluid portion over here and then the cell portion over here. Now what we will do with this sample is we will centrifuge it in a machine, and then we will get a clear fluid here. There will be a clear demarcation between the cells and the fluid part, and that is called as serum. Plasma is also the same, but in plasma there is no clotting of blood. Plasma will always be taken in a sample or in a container which has anticoagulants in it. So blood coagulation will not happen or blood clotting will not happen. What happens is that there will be a plasma portion, there will be a little portion of WBC over here and the red blood cells. This we will take to the centrifuge machine, and then they will separate. Okay? The difference between both of them is simple. Both of them are fluid, obviously. Both of them undergo centrifugation. But the only factor here is the clotting factor. You know, clotting factors are the proteins that are used for blood clotting. Right? What is blood clotting? When you cut yourself, you get a cut in your hand, you see the blood after some time, it becomes solidified, right? There is blood clotting. So that happens because of certain proteins that are in the body that helps in clotting of blood. Okay, those factors are present in the plasma, not in the serum. Serum has nothing in it, it's just a fluid, okay, with enzymes and everything is there, but the clotting factor is not there. Where is the clotting factor? It is there in the plasma. That's the basic difference. This is a centrifuge machine, okay. So you will put, this is the sample, you're putting it here, and then you see there is extra sample here, so you have to balance these two, okay. And so you put it there, you close the lid, and then it will rotate in a very high speed, 5,000 rates per minute, for example, 5,000 rates per minute. And then when you, with the centrifugal force, the solid part will settle down and the liquid part will go up. In plasma, clotting factors will be present. In serum, clotting factors will not be there. This is how it will look like after centrifugation. You see, this is serum and this is plasma. Usually you will not see any difference between them. If somebody shows you a sample and asks you is it plasma or serum, you will not be able to differentiate between them. But what you can see is the cap. Cap color is different. This is called a vacutainer, okay, or a vial, V-I-A-L, or a vacutainer, okay. This is the name. And this comes in your spotters as well. Your seniors used to write bulb. It is not bulb. Okay, this is called a vacutainer. Serum is collected always in either red color vacutainer or a yellow color vacutainer. Okay, all the other colors will be collecting plasma. All right. Now, this plasma, since we're talking about plasma, the enzymes that are there in plasma can be divided into two groups. One is called functional, one is called non-functional. Now in functional group, what do we have? There are certain enzymes which are present, which are released by certain cells always. Okay, in tiny amount, they will be released from certain cells, from the certain organs. For example, liver is secreting clotting factors, and they will be doing the function in the plasma of clotting blood. Okay, and they are in minority. They are known as functional enzymes because they have function in the plasma. Okay. Now we have non-functional enzymes, which are majority of the enzymes that get released from the cells during normal cell turnover. What is normal cell turnover? Whenever a cell dies and is replaced by another cell. You know, like RBC, what is the turnover rate? It is 120 days. RBC dies within 3 months and then gets replaced by 3 to 4 months and get replaced by new RBC. So that is known as cell turnover, the normal physiological death of a cell. So whenever a cell dies, it releases certain enzymes into the plasma. In the plasma, those enzymes have no value. Within the cells, they have a value, but outside into the plasma, they have no value. Therefore, they are known as non-functional cells. Now, why are we learning these functional and non-functional cells? Enzymes. So, non-functional enzymes, you know, they are normal physiologically also. They happen. They are released into the plasma at a certain rate. We know that they have a normal value in a normal person who is not diseased. Okay, but in case we find that these enzymes are raised in a person, we know that there is a constant rate. If it increases more than that, then we know that something is wrong with that cell from which it is being released, or the cell or the tissue or the organ from where it is being released. That's why it is important to know. That is why we are learning clinical enzymology. That brings us to the topic of isoenzymes. Isoenzymes. Some of you may have had your SGD class on isoenzymes as well. Iso meaning same, enzymes means enzymes. So what are these enzymes? They are same form, they are different forms of the same enzyme. It is the same enzyme found in different forms, and they are differing in their physical as well as the chemical property. The definition is very important. Isoenzymes as a topic is very important. So isoenzymes are found, different isoenzymes of different enzymes are found in different tissues in different proportions. So when we study those tissues or study those isoenzymes, we can make out a disease or differentiate or rule out certain diseases from the derangements that can happen because of the level of these isoenzymes. For example, LDH or lactate dehydrogenase. This enzyme is responsible for converting lactic acid to pyruvic acid or pyruvic acid to lactic acid. You see, this is double arrow here, which means it is interconversion. Both this interconversion can be done by LDH. Now this LDH enzyme has 5 isoenzymes. LDH 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And these LDH enzymes each have 2 subunits. One is called M subunit, which is for muscle. One is called H subunit, which is for the heart. These are the isoenzymes. You see over here, these are the isoenzymes, the name of isoenzymes and where they are originating from. Okay. Now, LDH1 is originating from heart, LDH2 from the RBC, LDH3 from brain, LDH4 from liver, LDH5 from skeletal muscle. Why are we learning this? Why this origin, what is the importance of this origin? Now, suppose if there is a condition, we find that LDH1 is suddenly raised. We can find out that there must be something wrong with the heart because the heart muscles, so the cells in the heart muscles are dying and releasing enzymes known as LDH, and they are increased in number. That means there is more number of cells dying. The cell turnover is increased more than the normal rate. So we can make out that there is something wrong with the heart. Something is wrong with the heart. Myocardial infarction. Some of you have had class on myocardial infarction already. In layman's term, heart attack, right? Scientifically, we use myocardial infarction. So what happens? Certain part of the cell, certain part of the heart cell dies. Okay, this is what happens in myocardial infarction. What happens in myocardial infarction? There is something called flipped ratio between LDH1 and LDH2. LDH2 levels normally are higher than LDH1. So इनका जब ratio बनाते हैं तो denominator, since LDH2 levels are higher in the body, the ratio will always be less than 1. This is normal, okay? But in case of a person suffering from heart attack or myocardial infarction or simply MI, this ratio will be flipped, ulta ho jana. So what will happen is LDH1 will rise. Why? Because you see, where is LDH1 present? It is present in the heart. Heart is not functioning well, heart cells are dying, therefore they are releasing more enzymes into the plasma. When we measure it, it will be more. Okay, so this ratio will increase. So LDH1 जब ज़्यादा हो जाएगा तो the ratio will become more than 1. LDH1 is to LDH2 is known as flipped ratio when it is more than 2 or more than 1. Okay, and this is seen only in myocardial infarction. It is seen within 12 to 24 hours after the starting of the infarction. The normal levels are given 100 to 200 international unit per liter, and within 10 to 12 hours it starts to rise. What starts to rise? LDH. Okay, lactate dehydrogenase enzyme level starts to rise within 12 to 24 hours of an onset of a heart attack. They will be peaking. The highest level will be reached within 2 days, and then it will reach its baseline by 5 to 6 days. Okay. Now LDH4 is an indicator of a liver disease, because you see LDH4 is present in liver. LDH4 का level बड़ा होगा तो we can make out कि there is something wrong with the liver. Okay. LDH5, something must be wrong with our skeletal muscle. Like muscular dystrophy, LDH5 is seen to be higher. LDH2 is present in the RBC. Therefore, when RBC breaks down, any condition that leads to breakage of RBC like hemolytic anemia, we can find LDH2 to be increased. Now, here it is mentioned that RBC may LDH activity normally 800 to 1000 times more than that is present in the serum. Now, why do we want to know that? Because in case you take a sample, okay, and there is hemolysis within the sample because of our fault. Some of you have had pre-analytical, analytical and post-analytical errors, right? So before the analysis of the particular sample, जब हम sample निकालते हैं from somebody, we are taking the sample, that time because of wrong application of tourniquet or because we are not handling the vacutainer properly, the cells within it can break. The RBC is very fragile, it can break. It breaks, if it breaks then it will release lots of LDH. The person is not having hemolytic anemia, but the sample is hemolyzed, like so, okay? Here on the left side you will see this is a hemolyzed sample. We want a clear sample. इसको जितना भी centrifuge करो, it is not going to clot, it is not going to settle down. Now, if you measure this red one, you will find that there is false rise in LDH level because of our fault, right? So we want that every serum that we are testing should be clear like this and not like this. So this has to be discarded. Now we have learned about LDH. Let's learn about creatine phosphokinase, CPK, or simply creatine kinase or CK enzyme. Another very important enzyme for MI in case of heart attack. Now this enzyme is used for the interconversion of phosphocreatine to creatine, okay, and creatine back to phosphocreatine. It has 3 isoenzymes: CPK-MB, BB and MM. These are the normal values. Now look at the normal values and tell me, do males or females have higher CPK levels in their body? Who has higher levels? Males or females? Males. Anybody can tell me why? Because of? Any idea? So these are the isoenzymes, okay, of CPK: BB, MB and MM. MM is present in the muscles, MB is present in muscle and brain, and BB is present in the brain. Now you see, MM is present in muscles, and males have much more muscle mass compared to females, right, physiologically. Therefore, the range also differs for males and females. इसीलिए the range is more for males because they have higher muscle mass than females. So the formation of this enzyme also is more in males. Okay. Now, if there is problem like stroke, if there is any neurological problem, we may find there is increase in the CKBB enzyme, isoenzyme. Okay. And we are concerned here with MI, where we will find CKMB is raised. CKMB is very specific for heart disease or for MI. Now what happens is that within first 4 to 8 hours of an onset of a heart attack, within 8 hours the CPK levels, CKMB levels will rise, start to rise from the normal level. You see, these are the normal levels, right? It will be more than this within 8 hours. Then the highest level will be seen within 1 day, and then it will reach its baseline by 3 days. So now, if someone comes to you with the suspicion of heart attack, which enzyme will you do first? Will you do LDH enzyme test or will you do CPKMB? Louder? Why? Because it rises much more earlier than LDH. You see, LDH here, it is rising within 12 to 24 hours, but CPK enzyme is rising within 8 hours, 4 to 8 hours. So you want to find out if this person is suffering from a heart attack or MI or not quickly, right? See, when a person comes to you, you see in movies, they'll come with a lot of chest pain, this and that. Usually, majority of the people don't come with a lot of chest pain, especially if somebody is diabetic. They can have masking effects of their pain, and you will read about it more in medicine and physiology probably. So not everyone will come with chest pain radiating to the left side of the arm. Some of them may come with just epigastric pain. Some may come with pain in the chest a little bit and it's going back, it's going to my left hand. Some people will come and say that I'm just having anxiety, I don't feel good, अच्छा नहीं लग रहा. Some people will come with palpitation. So it is very difficult to diagnose them on the spot. But with practice, you will be able to be suspicious about those patients कि इसको हो सकता है. I want to rule out MI in this patient. So एक तो आप EKG करोगे, ECG करोगे. Then at the same time you have to do these tests as well. That's why it's very important to learn about these things, because on the spot you cannot wait for ECG reports to come. You have to send at the same time, write their medicine also, do an ECG also, and get the blood reports done quickly. Okay. Estimation of CKMB is the earliest reliable indicator of myocardial infarction among enzymes. Okay. Now since we are talking about cardiac abnormality, troponins, which are proteins that are in protein complex that are involved in muscle contraction in the heart and the skeletal muscle, also plays an important role in detection of MI. See, this is not an enzyme, okay, but a question might come, a short note on cardiac markers. So when they ask you about cardiac markers, you have to mention these. If they're only asking about enzymes, you don't have to mention troponins. Troponins are two here for biochemistry point of view, troponin I and troponin T. Among this, troponin I is more sensitive. They are released, they start to rise within 4 hours after the onset. So this is even earlier than CKMB. Peak value is reached by 12 hours and then they remain elevated for a week. So in practice, in practical life, if somebody comes to you, you want to rule out MI as soon as possible, you will be doing TROP-I. Okay? Now, what are transaminases or aminotransferases? Anybody who can tell me? We have already read about it before. Can tell me the definition? What are aminotransferases? What does it transfer? Yes? Be loud, it's okay, even if you're wrong. Amino group from an amino acid and it gives it to a keto acid. Okay, so an aminotransferase enzyme will transfer amino group from an amino acid and give it to keto acid. So the original amino acid will become a keto acid and the original keto acid will become an amino acid. Okay, what are those two enzymes? AST and ALT. AST is alanine transaminase, aspartate transaminase, and ALT is alanine transaminase, also known as SGOT and SGPT. The AST normal levels are 8 to 20 international unit per liter. You have to remember all the range of these enzymes. Why are we reading about this? Because AST is present in RBC, skeletal muscle, heart, liver. They're present in so many areas, but mostly the concentration is very high in the heart and the liver. Okay, therefore obviously when there is a condition of the heart, AST levels will increase, for example in MI. Okay, so if they're asking you about enzymes that you will do in myocardial infarction, you have to mention AST as well. Okay, in practical life we don't rely on AST levels much. So it starts to rise by 12 hours, peaks by 36 hours, and baseline by 4 to 5 days. This is a chart depicting the same that I have talked. This is the timeline, this is the enzyme activity, and this is the hours and the days. This is given in your textbooks. AST ho gaya. Now ALT is concentrated in the liver. You see AST is also present in liver. So whenever there is a liver condition, if there is hepatitis, if there is obstruction, biliary obstruction and all of that, you will see both ALT and AST levels will be high. But ALT is much more specific for liver disease. Okay, any hepatocellular damage, any damage to the cells of the liver will see marked rise in ALT levels. There will be 1,000 times increase in the levels of ALT. ALT will be 10 to 30 international unit per liter normal values. ALT is much more specific than AST for liver disease. Then we come to alkaline phosphatase or ALP, very important enzyme. Phosphatase, okay, it breaks down phosphate, so removes phosphate group at an alkaline pH, therefore the name is called alkaline phosphatase. Okay, it breaks phosphate group. The normal range is up to 150 international unit per liter. This ALP has 6 isoenzymes. So alpha 1 ALP, alpha 2 heat labile and heat stable, pre-beta and gamma ALP. Alpha 1 ALP is seen in obstructive jaundice because it is present in biliary canaliculi. You have read about jaundice already in physiology, right? So whenever there is obstruction in the biliary canaliculi, these enzymes will be released. You can make out that there is something wrong with the with our biliary canaliculi, and therefore obstructive jaundice diagnosis can be reached. So pre-beta heat labile will be seen in bone disease. So ALP rises in case of obstructive jaundice, in case of bone diseases, and also in pregnancy. So these are sick conditions, these are pathological conditions. 2 physiological conditions where we will find rise in ALP are, first of all, you see pregnancy. So during pregnancy, any pregnant lady with high level of ALP, you don't have to worry about them much, right? You rule out other things, but mostly pregnant ladies may show higher levels of ALP. Dusra hai growing children. Because their bone turnover is quite high, children are growing, their bones are developing, therefore ALP levels in children will be higher than normal. So these are 2 conditions where we will see a rise, physiological rise in ALP levels. Baki, all these conditions will show high ALP levels. Then we have something called nucleotide phosphate or 5-nucleotidase. This removes the phosphate group from nucleotides and convert it into nucleoside. So these nucleotide and nucleosides are building blocks of RNA and DNA. Okay, we'll go about it in other days, but for now it rises in the obstructive liver disease. ALP also rises in obstructive liver disease, right? But this 5' nucleotidase is much more specific than ALP because it doesn't rise in any bony disease. You see ALP rises in bony disease as well, right? So how are you going to find out if the person is having bone disease or liver disease, right? So you are going to do this. Then you will find out कि अगर ये भी if this is also increased, then you can rule out bone disease, and you can be specific about, okay, there must be something wrong with the liver only and not the bone. Then we have amylase. We have read it in digestion chapter, right? Amylase released from the pancreas and the salivary gland. So normal levels are 50 to 120 international unit per liter. Higher levels are seen in what? When there is inflammation of pancreas and salivary glands, like in pancreatitic and mumps. Mumps happens in inflammation of which organ? Which salivary gland? Anybody? Which salivary gland is involved in mumps? Parotid gland. Okay, is parotid gland done in anatomy? Not yet, you will learn. So, there is a vaccine called MMR, right? What is MMR? MMR? No idea this side? What is MMR vaccine? What are the components of MMR? All of you have taken MMR vaccine? Yes? No idea if you have taken? MMR stands for mumps, measles and rubella. Okay? Please know what you are taking also. So the mumps portion. Mumps happen because of mumps virus, which is the inflammation which causes inflammation of parotid gland. So in case of mumps, we will see that there is rise in amylase. Okay? Lipase also is a digestive enzyme. Lipase means breakdown, it causes breakdown of lipids. So triglycerides are converted into monoglycerides and smaller fatty acids. Now in acute pancreatitis, lipase will be rising. Now somebody with acute pancreatitis is a very painful condition. A person will come with you with severe epigastric pain. They will not be even able to tell you what is going on. They'll just clutch their stomach like this and they'll cry and they'll vomit and all that. So this is called acute abdomen as well. Anybody who's coming with acute abdominal pain, okay? You don't know if it's because of appendicitis or if it is because of gallbladder inflammation or because of pancreatitis or if there's bullet in the stomach. You don't know anything if there is any internal bleeding. So what you're going to do is you're going to send the person you're going to start pain medication, you're going to send the person for ultrasonography, right? At the same time, you will also do blood test. Which blood test? You're going to do lipase and amylase. You see, amylase increases in both pancreatitis, right? And lipase increases only in pancreatitis. Lipase and amylase both increases in pancreatitis, but lipase is much more specific for pancreatitis, okay? So if you see lipase levels are risen in a person who is having stomach pain, you can make out that there is something wrong with the pancreas, most probably inflammation of pancreas, okay, known as pancreatitis. These were all disease conditions. Now we talk, even in cancer, some of the enzymes are used to detect cancers. For example, acid phosphatase. Acid phosphatase, so this is optimum at an acidic pH of 4 to 6 and they are produced by RBC, leukocytes, platelets, and sometimes by prostate, and a small amount by prostate gland. Does a male or a female have prostate gland? Prostate gland is present in males or females? How many of you say females? No one, right? Please don't answer that. It's only present in males. One of my friends, when I was in first year, during Viva, they said females and ovaries in males. Don't answer like that in Viva, okay? Don't laugh. You guys also answer all stupid answers during Viva. Anyway, prostate. So whenever there is carcinoma of prostate gland or cancer of prostate gland, acid phosphatase is seen to be risen. Okay. Then we have something called NSE or neuron specific enolase. This is an enzyme which is seen in neuroblastoma, neurological tumors, cancer of the lung, as well as pheochromocytoma. Anybody who can tell me what is pheochromocytoma? Anyone knows what is pheochromocytoma? Okay. Now, PSA, prostate specific antigen. This is not an enzyme. It is a protein, this is not an enzyme, okay? But we still need to mention it because this is a very specific indicator of prostate gland cancer of the prostate gland. Okay, this is different than acid phosphatase. Both of them will rise, but PSA is much more specific. So if for any reason you have done this acid phosphatase, you see that this is recent, then you will have to do this PSA as well, and that will help you be sure of this carcinoma. Okay, so normal concentration is very less, 1 to 4 nanogram per milliliter. These were all disease conditions. All the enzymes we have read till now has been regarding how these enzymes can be used to detect a disease, right? Now, as a medicine also we can use certain enzymes. One of them is streptokinase, or the other name would be urokinase. So what do they do is that they prevent blood clot, or if the blood has already clotted, it helps it to break down into smaller pieces. And when do we need that? We need that when somebody is having, let's say, a patient of myocardial infarction, MI, somebody who has had stroke, somebody who is having deep vein thrombosis. There is thrombus formation, there is already too much clotting of blood that is happening, and it is going to the larger vessels and going to the lungs and to the heart, or maybe to the brain, and causing infarction there. Okay, we don't want that. So in that case, we put patients on these medications. So what do they do? This is the normal clotting process. Plasminogen getting converted into plasmin, and this will plasmin will then convert fibrin to soluble products, which means that it will just, fibrin is helping in the clot formation. It is like a mesh, it will gather together platelets and everything, and then it will cause clot formation. So when streptokinase, what does streptokinase do? It prevents the conversion of plasminogen into plasmin. So plasmin banega hi nahi, there will be no fibrin to cause mesh formation and clot formation. This will prevent clotting of blood. So that is why streptokinase is used. Then something called asparaginase in cancers like ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So in that case, what happens is that these tumor cells that are there, some of them cannot produce their own asparagine, which is a type of amino acid. They are dependent on the normal cells' production of asparagine. So these tumor cells need asparagine component amino acid for their growth and multiplication. So they use the normal cells asparagine. So if we can somehow stop these normal cells from producing asparagine, we can stop the growth of, or at least stunt the growth of these tumor cells, right? So this is where asparaginase enzyme comes. Asparaginase meaning it breaks down asparagine or inhibits asparagine. So it will inhibit the formation of asparagine in the normal cells. Therefore, the tumor cells cannot use up the host cells asparagine for its growth and development. Therefore, tumor cells will not grow. This is the basic theory. Then we have something like trypsin and pepsin, etc., which are digestive enzymes. They are given in patients who have pancreatic insufficiency. Pancreatic insufficiency means that the pancreas are not able to do its job properly. For example, if they are having acute pancreatitis or chronic pancreatitis, or for some reason if we have to do surgery on the pancreas are very much helpful in digestion of our food. Therefore, we somehow help the digestion through the by outsourcing this trypsin and pepsin in our diet in the form of medicine. So these 3-4 names you have to remember. Exam में question आता है, what are diagnostic enzymes? What are therapeutic enzymes? Remember the names. Diagnostic meaning for the diagnosis of disease. Which are the enzymes will we study? Can we measure so that we can come to a diagnosis? Those are diagnostic enzymes, जिसमें आपको isoenzymes mention करने हैं. Then other question may come as therapeutic enzymes. What are the enzymes that are used in treatment purpose, like these streptokinase, urokinase, etc. Then some question may come as mention cardiac markers. Okay, so you have to mention in that case AST, LDH, CPKMB, as well as the cardiac troponins. If they are only asking you isoenzymes, then you can mention LDH, CKMB, ALP, etc. Okay, so this was your class.